another edition of the Patients Like Me podcast. I am your host, Aaron Fleischman. Today's guest is Paul Wicks, head of the research and development team here at Patients Like Me. And for those of you who don't know, Patients Like Me just launched their 10th community for people with epilepsy. So I asked Paul to come on the podcast to talk a little bit about the new community and its features. So here's my conversation with Paul, and I hope you enjoy. Paul, Patients Like Me just launched their 10th community for people with epilepsy. What is the overall goal of this community, and how can this community change healthcare's approach to epilepsy?
Well, in our interviews with patients who have epilepsy, who experience recurrent seizures that interfere with their daily lives, frequently people would really like to meet other people who have seizures for the same reason as they do, so they want to find other patients like them. And because we collect a lot of information about their syndromes and their diagnosis, we make it very easy for patients to find other patients like them. The seizure meter allows them to record the types of seizures they've had, and it's recording that on a weekly basis. So how many seizures of these different types have you had each week? And one of the things that we thought was really important to differentiate and distinguish was not just how many seizures you've had, but how severe they were. Because the types of seizures range from, you could blank out for a second to you could have a full convulsion and need to end up in the emergency room. But depending on people's lives and their situations and what they're trying to do, different types of seizures will have different types of impacts.
There are a lot of places, there are a lot of websites and communities and forums that people can go to learn more about epilepsy. What separates Patients Like Me from some of the regular standard communities that people can join?
Well, the internet has had a lot to offer people with chronic health conditions for about the past 10 years or so. And many of the most common sites that are out there rely on message boards and forums where people can swap stories with one another and interact socially. We do also have a very vibrant forum on Patients Like Me that allows patients to do just that. But I think what really separates us is our emphasis on collecting data that is clinically relevant, with questions that are trying to get at what is really important from the patient's point of view, but also capturing data in such a way that can be understood by clinicians. Just to give you an example, in the data that we capture about patients' treatments, we don't just ask you to enter in all the drugs you're taking in a big list. Mm-hmm. We actually have a structured database of all the common treatments that people have entered, and we know what the most common dosages are. So we will help you as you enter in the data report what is the correct dose that you're taking of a drug. So we're trying to support patients to enter valid, correct data. I would say that's one of the key things that distinguishes us.
While we're helping our patients fill out this data and encouraging them to fill out this data, what happens to this data? Where does it go, and why are we asking patients to fill it out?
So one of the things we're trying to understand is what is the correct way to ask these questions. I think a lot of what's been done before has relied on paper diaries, where you just say how many seizures you've had today or this week or this month or what have you. And that can get difficult because people, they don't always have a good recollection for it. And it's actually quite hard to maintain the discipline of filling out, a paper diary when you're supposed to. So what happens in practice is that, people are given these diaries to take home and they fill them out, as they're supposed to for a little while, and then they kind of lose interest in it. But then it's time to come to the doctor's office. So there's this thing called the parking lot syndrome, where you're there in the parking lot, you're going to get in trouble if you haven't filled out the seizure diary. So people go, oh, this is what I was like on Monday, and this is probably what I was like on Wednesday, and I can't remember. They just all sort of scribble it in, and for extra brownie points, you use different coloured pens just to mix it up a little bit. And so what that means is that the scientific field, our knowledge about what seizures people have and how they affect them is to some extent biased by all those issues. So what we're trying to do is capture this information in an ongoing fashion, and we know when the data is captured and can try and get a better sense of that. And because we're planning to get large numbers of patients, thousands of patients in this community, we'll have the statistical power to hopefully be able to answer some of those questions.
And that concludes our podcast for this week. For more information on Patients Like Me, please log on to PatientsLikeMe.com. You can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook page. Thanks for stopping by and listening, and we'll talk to you next time.